Hello.
We're recording a podcast during Mercury retrograde, which
So
meant
we'll see how this goes.
there were some buttons that were like, are we going to be pushed? I don't know.
We'll see.
We're going to try it. Okay, well, welcome. We have some questions. Pulled some cards. We've got maybe some Enneagram wisdom coming in. We'll see. This
Okay.
first question does not have an Enneagram type associated with it.
Okay.
It's fine. I'm interested in the Queen of Cups as it's been showing up a lot for me lately, and I suspect it's me. Okay. So not exactly a question, but I think you're just kind of like, why? Why is this card showing up for me all the time? And you do bring up something that is, not exactly a debate in the tarot community, but people have different approaches, which is court cards. Like, do they represent other people? Do they represent you? Can it be both, etc. And I think they can absolutely be both. And I think it's always in your best interest to interpret it as if it represents you and your own needs, right? Like that's the default, in my opinion.
Okay.
I think it's a more empowering way to read. When I first learned tarot, I was like kind of taught by someone who was of the mind that tarot cards were court cards were never other people. They were always you. And I've definitely softened my approach to that. And I think absolutely they can be other people in our lives. Because that makes sense, right? I mean, relationships are a huge part of our lives, so why wouldn't they? But I think, again, it behooves us to always read them as if they belong to us and they're representing us and something that we need to attend to, and to do that first before we ask who else might it be. So Queen of Cups is very much about emotional self-care. And when it keeps coming up and up and up, it's like asking you to tend to something emotionally. Okay. And so I just pulled a couple cards. I pulled why is Queen of Cups showing up for you over and over. Pulled Three of Swords.
You have some things to feel.
Yeah. I mean, a card that needs emotional self-care is Three of Swords. It's like asking you to feel something. So maybe you are in a season of grief, or maybe there is some grief under the surface that you're not attending to and looking at. But in any case, this is like the heart broken open that needs it needs care. So what self-care practice, emotional self-care practice would be of most benefit to you? I pulled Four of Wands. And this is interesting. So this could really go both ways. I feel like Three of Swords could be saying you've been in this energy for so long that you need to lighten up. Four of Wands can be that energy of celebration and needing to focus on something really positive for a little while. So it could be that. Conversely, it could be Three of Swords, you need to feel this stuff. You've been avoiding it. And what Four of Wands can also be about in a really big way is marking transitions and doing intentional honoring of something that's happened. It's often called the wedding card, but it can also be funerals.
Rites of passage.
Yes, any rite of passage. So if you've been through something in Three of Wands space or Three of Swords space that really needs a ritual around it to be this happened, this was hard, I need to process this and let it go, then Four of Wands asks you to do that in a way that's ritualistic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have any Enneagram stuff here, but do you have anything to add?
No.
No? Okay, let's move on. We do have potentially some Enneagram stuff in this next question.
Okay.
This person is not quite sure what their type is. They say they're maybe a 3.
Maybe a 3.
Maybe a 3. How can I support...
They're probably a 3.
Do you find that if people suspect they're a 3, it's very likely?
Yeah, I don't find a lot of people who say that they're 3s and it turns out that they're not. 3 seems it's a pretty hard pill to swallow. Very similar with 1s.
Yeah, they don't mistype very often.
Yeah, now somebody might say, oh, I thought I was this, and turns out I'm a 3, but usually if somebody's landed on 3,
You trust them.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so this may be a 3. How can I support my about-to-be homeless best friend without jeopardizing my own mental and financial stability? That's a hard one.
Well, let's just go to the cards. Because I immediately am
You're
what's
I
happening?
have some opinions. Well, the card that I pulled, I phrased the question, what support do you have the capacity to offer?
Okay.
And I pulled the Hierophant, which to me says you can point them towards institutional support.
Yeah.
That they might need.
Yeah.
Oh, here are here's an organization that works with people who are on this brink, you know, like find them the teachers and the guidance that they need.
Yeah.
Because if they're in that frantic, urgent space of like, oh my God, panic, this is about to happen to me, they might not have the capacity to be researching that stuff, but you might. So that's what Hierophant says to me.
Yeah. And I mean, also like so much of like, I mean, people end up on the street, it's like, it is because of like, there are always like financial things that play into it, but so often it's like a misalignment of community. Like there's not enough communal support. And that shows up like in like, essentially it's like there may be reasons beyond your support or your control that this person is about to be homeless.
Yeah.
And if you are a 3, it's important that you know that it's not your job to fix it. And I think that is something to really internalize. Like, this person has to go through this journey if it's something that they, like, if this is their thing, it's like, this is what they're going to have to go through.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can be there and be supportive without necessarily, like, you don't need to pay their rent.
Yeah.
You don't
have
need
to fix it.
Yeah, that's not the kind of, it doesn't sound like that's the kind of relationship you have with this person.
Yeah.
Or else you wouldn't be asking these questions. So, yeah, I think pointing towards the like institutions that can support, you know, like there is a question like, why is this happening? You probably know, and you can probably see that a lot more clearly than they can. And so pointing in the direction of like, these are the things that are going to help.
Right.
That seems like a good call.
Yeah. So maybe you can hook them up with somebody, a caseworker of some sort or what have you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So here we have a question from a type 6. How, I think this question is so funny. I find it delightful. How do you integrate additional decks into your practice without offending the first deck? I think that's really cute. I think it's a really cute question. How do you integrate additional decks into your practice without offending the first deck? I don't know if I've ever heard anyone ask this question, because usually people are like, more, you know, I love it, without that like, oh no, you know, is it going to hurt this other deck's feelings?
I'm real interested in what you drew, because again, I'm already like, I'm thinking, it's like I already have answers.
Okay, well, let's go to the card first and see how it aligns with what you feel compelled to say. Yeah. Well, I just pulled 5 of Pentacles. And to me, like, it just really feels like examining your own, like, feelings about rejection and being, like, pushed out, you know? Like, did that happen to you? Is that, like, a theme throughout your life, and you're, like, over-identifying with this tarot deck that's going to be, like, pushed to the margins, and you're like, oh, my God. So that's what comes up for me with 5 of Pentacles here. Yeah,
I mean, what I was thinking really doesn't, I mean, necessarily super align with 5 of Pentacles, but it really is this, like, you need to look beyond the deck. Like, you're not talking to little printed pieces of paper. Like, that's not what you're talking to. You're talking to something that is using these little printed pieces of paper to communicate with you. And so
it doesn't matter.
This is paper and ink. It's not going to be offended. And what is on the other side is like wants to communicate with you and can use all of these little printed pieces of paper to do that. Yeah. I mean, there is some things with like 5 of Pentacles. It's like there is the institution, but then there is what the institution is actually there to represent. And I think that that's maybe, if I'm going to tie my interpretation into 5 of Pentacles, that's how I would do it. It's like there's, you know, there's the church, but then there's like, why did the church exist? Why did the tarot cards exist? Not because these little pieces of paper actually do anything in and of themselves, but because you're communicating with something
beyond it.
Beyond that.
Yeah. So really working to remind yourself.
Or maybe you've never asked.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you've never asked, like, what are you talking to?
Right. And I think that's actually a question that I have people ask often, like in classes and stuff like that, is like, who do I think I'm communicating with?
Yeah.
Because like, if you pull a card around that, then maybe, or, you know, just journal about it, what have you, it'll help kind of expose like your ideas around, you know, the character that you think this spirit has.
Yeah.
Because kind of, implicit in your question is that it's capable of having its feelings hurt, which makes it seem kind of like maybe immature or petty in some ways, like that energy. And I don't think that that's truly the case.
Yeah.
But anyway, a metaphor that I don't know if it's a metaphor. I always get these things confused. But it might be helpful for you. When I think about using different decks, and they do seem to have different personalities or like tones when you work with multiple decks, you're like, oh, this deck can be a little snarky, or this deck is really compassionate, what have you. And so it can make it seem like you are speaking with like different spirits or whatever. But I tend to think of them as like woodwind instruments, like a variety of them, like a piccolo and an oboe and a tuba and whatever. And they all are going to sound really different, but it's the same breath that's moving through them. And so that's what flavors it. It's not that it's a different personality, so to speak. So maybe that's helpful to think about. Okay, here we have a type 2.
Okay.
Strategies for building confidence in a new career? Question mark.
Ooh.
Yeah. This was great because I was like, I knew the card that I wanted to pull and that I should pull. I was like, it has to be
It's
this.
got to be this.
It has to be this. And it was.
Nice.
And it was this. It was Page of Swords.
Okay.
Which is like exactly the card that represents this whole thing. When you're stepping into something new that you've never done before and you're feeling like a little trepidatious about your ability to do it, this is that energy. And so coming up as advice is really just kind of like, you want to build confidence, well, you build it by doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people really like rag on the like fake it till you make it approach, but like that is how you build confidence. Like you pretend that like you act as if you're already confident and then suddenly you have confidence. Like it's not the other way around.
No.
You don't get confident and then act. You build confidence by acting. And you have to just pretend that you're confident if you get started.
100%.
Like that,
That is what Page of Swords is all about. And it's, I mean, you just have to like swallow that.
Yeah, and I mean, there's something like really magical in it. You know, like the whole idea of like beginner's luck and this, you know, like there is a magic to like coming to new things confidently. Like that is powerful. And if you don't do that naturally, fake it.
Yeah.
Like the magic is still there either way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I think on some level, like another tagline for Page of Swords, which is kind of in line with what we're saying, but kind of not, is do it afraid.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So like the confidence is like you build it while you're doing it, but like you are starting out with that trepidation and a little bit of anxiety and uncertainty about your abilities. And that's okay. Like it's okay to do it afraid.
Yeah.
In fact, that's a really positive, good thing.
Yeah. And I would say just to be really mindful, because you are a 2, to not let, to not have your confidence be directly related to how other people are perceiving you in this job, especially. Because as soon as you start doing that, you've lost the battle. Like people's opinions of you and of your work are going to like ebb and flow, and that is very natural. And that will completely erode your confidence if that's where you're placing that energy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So true. So true. Well, good luck.
You're going to do great.
You can do it. Like Page of Swords is a very you can do it vibe, you know? And just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Okay. A type 1. I'm a type 1 and I have ADHD. Many ADHD symptoms and expressions are very antithetical to a lot of type 1 needs and characteristics. What energies do I need to embrace in order to stop working against myself? And what energy do I need to embrace in order to accept these conflicting forces within myself? I just kind of pulled that into one question because I think it's really the same thing. And I pulled 5 of Cups. 5 of Cups, like we kind of tend to interpret this as like, oh, we've lost something, we need to grieve, etc. And that's very true. But I think another big aspect of 5 of Cups is learning to embrace imperfection. That's just a huge part of it. It's like life is messy, we're imperfect. It's never going to be exactly the way we want, and we have to love it anyway. So there's some quote, and I can't remember who said it, but I pulled 5 of Cups for it once, and I just really have like grown in my understanding of this card. through this, which is imperfection is literally the only option. That is it.
Yeah.
There is no such thing.
So true. Okay.
So, like this feels like a very simple like answer, although I do know that that's very challenging for ones to accept.
Yeah. Like essentially you're asking like, how do I do this deep inner work? It's like, well, you get a practice, you have a teacher, you be a part of a community. That is how you do it.
Yeah.
There's not that is the step-by-step guide.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not doing those things, but you're still asking, how do I do it?
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, it's willful ignorance at that point. Like
yeah.
The thing you have to do is build practices that give you the space to have capacity outside of what your type allows. Mm-hmm. And you have to have somebody who is guiding those practices, somebody who can see outside of your own,
bias,
outside of your own biases, whether those are coming directly from being a type 1 or from having ADHD or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And you need to surround yourself with people who are doing the same.
Yeah.
Like without that, the work's not going to work.
You've just given a really nice little summary of your book.
Yes, I have.
So let's just sell that for a minute. Abby's book.
You can read the Conscious Enneagram.
Yeah, that's what your whole book is about.
Yes.
Is about like how to actually like do this stuff.
Yeah.
Which is, like you said, practice, lineage, a teacher, and community. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you go into it in much greater detail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what it is. It's like, if you want to know how, I say this because I know that it is like the least satisfying answer possible. Like nobody likes it when I say these things. They're like, oh, but like, how do you do it?
Because we want a shortcut.
This is how. Yeah, we want a shortcut. We want it to be like somehow like and I know this because it's my experience too, is like, I want it to be both way more specific, but also a lot more vague.
So you don't have to actually do it.
Exactly. Like I want it to be specific enough to like relate to me, but I want it to be vague enough that I don't actually have to take action around it. Mm-hmm. Like I want someone to demystify the process, but I do know on some level, as soon as it's demystified, it doesn't work. It's like,
well, and we also, I think there's something too that we often think that like talking about this stuff is the same thing as doing it.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's
y'all, just shut up. Just shut up.
Yeah.
Stop talking about it and do it. Mm-hmm. Just stop talking about it and do it. If I could give one piece of advice to literally everyone interested in the Enneagram and personal growth, it would be to shut up.
Mm-hmm. Stop talking about it. But see, that's the thing. The thing is, like, we truly do not know what else there is. Yeah. It's not like we're just doing that because we're assholes or idiots.
Well, no.
It's just like, we don't know. We do not know. So when you say do it, I mean, a big part of what you are like encouraging people to do and guiding people to do is actually like physical practices and stuff. And I think that people don't realize that that's like such a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And that like physical practices, like your personal growth, like your spiritual growth and your growth through personality work and all that stuff, which seems like it's all up here and we could just solve it through talking. No, like it really is like grounded in the physical.
And I think that there's always like, I think this immediately leads into, because it's like, it is physical practices. There are very physical things, movement, breath work, meditation. These are things that you have to be doing. And what I hear a lot from people is this immediate like, well, I have ADHD, so I can't do that. Like I can't do these things. Or I'm a 6 and I can't focus, so I can't do these things.
Right.
And that's just simply not true. Mm-hmm. But that leads us directly into why you need a teacher to guide you into the practices that will be supportive for you. Because you can do this. Mm-hmm. And, the second that you say that you can't, well, then you're right.
Yeah.
And like, if you want to be right, then fine.
Mm-hmm. You don't have to change.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. But if you're going to be like fussing about it, like, why not actually do it? I don't know. That's my approach.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's not a pretty or like magical
No, there's no magical answer.
And that's, I think that's where people get really frustrated. And it's like, you're going to have to, be okay with the fact that nothing's perfect.
Right. Which is just the whole work of the one. Like,
yeah. You know, and it's like, that's where it's like, okay, well, it's very clear you're asking, how do I do this? And it's like, well, there it is, laid out.
Yeah. Get a practice.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we have time for this last question.
Okay.
This is a 2-wing one. Okay. Why do I always feel like my tarot cards are judging me?
Oh my God, it's so easy, but continue.
It prevents me from daily use, basically, was the end of the question. And that is, yes, I could 100% see why. No one wants to come to a relationship and show up every day and be judged.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's no fun.
Okay, so do you want me to talk about the cards first, or because like you were just like,
well, it's because
giddy.
It's because you're judging yourself.
Well, yeah. I mean, yes.
The end.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Like what you see in the cards is not about the cards, it's about you. All right, this is a reflective practice. And if you are constantly judging yourself, which I can assume that you are because you are a 2-wing one, that, you know, you don't have the inner critic quite as strongly as
a 1.
A 1, but you have an extra heavy helping of shame because you're a 2. And so the shame and the criticism pull double duty. And like, you have to find a space where you can realize that this judgment coming from the cards is like the call is coming from inside the house.
Well, let me talk about the cards that I pulled real quick. So I just, you know, the question was in the first sentence there. Why do I always feel like my tarot cards are judging me? And I pulled High Priestess and Ace of Pentacles reversed, which to me says that you are not taking the time when you pull cards to like ground yourself, center, settle in.
Yeah.
And that's what you really need to do. When these cards are reversed, like Ace of Pentacles reversed, we have an ungroundedness. We have a detachment from the body. High Priestess reverse is kind of the same. Like we haven't settled into that kind of interior sanctuary and that silence and that space.
Yeah, it's like you're pulling cards from your type.
Yeah.
And you're reading cards from your type. So
Right,
of course
exactly.
that's what's going to show up.
Right, and this is a 2. This could also be read as a 1 because it's an Ace, so that's kind of funny. But anyway.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
But yeah, so like giving yourself, so I don't know what your practice looks like, you know, like maybe it is a little bit more hurried than it needs to be. Or maybe you're just jumping into cards right away, but like giving yourself time to like maybe do some physical practice first. Like,
yeah, y'all, I mean,
it makes a big difference.
and here's the deal. It's like, whether we're talking about the Enneagram or we're talking about the tarot, we're talking about tools. And if we haven't worked on ourselves, the way we come to these tools will never really, quote unquote, work. Right? So these physical practices, meditation, breath work, this grounding, this settling, right? If we're not doing that on a regular basis, and that can look a myriad of different ways.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If we're not doing that, we're not able to use these tools effectively. There's just, you can't.
Yeah. Yeah. So give yourself more space. And if that means you don't do it every day, that's okay. No one said a tarot practice has to be every day.
Yeah.
Like maybe you only pull cards a couple times a week, but you do it when you have enough time to like first do a little yoga or just sit in child's pose and breathe for a little while or walk around the block first, like something to get you into your body. Do some breathing, maybe shuffle more. That's what I really enjoy like about my practice is taking the time to shuffle and I listen to the sound and that really grounds me. And it also gives me an opportunity to kind of listen to what's already running.
Yeah.
You know, and like I can kind of clear that out. Like I can listen to some of that bullshit and like the track that's just like going and going and going. I do that while I shuffle. And then I'm like, okay, that's happening. And I'm going to like set that aside and try not to let that influence everything here. So I would just say more time and grounding would really be helpful. But yeah, then it's like Abby said, like being clear that, I mean, the tarot is not judging you, 100% not. Like it's definitely you.
Sorry, again, not the answer you were probably wanting, but here we go.
Yeah. Okay, so everyone just needs to get into their body. That's what we've determined here today.
Everybody needs practices.
Everybody needs practices.
Everybody needs a teacher. Everybody needs a community. Just go through them all.
Yeah. I mean, y'all should just get Abby's book, I guess.
But buying a book is also not doing the work.
No, it's just like talking about it.
So like,
but
if you want some help to do these very specific things, then yeah, buy the book. But if you're buying the book thinking that it's going to solve your problems, don't buy the book.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I just don't. I don't care that much about sales.
Yeah, but I mean, seriously, like if you
Yeah.
do want to expand your like awareness of like what constitutes a practice, what does that look like?
Yeah.
And you also, you do a pretty good job of like talking about like, hey, there are some practices that are maybe not as good for certain types or better for others. And there's capacities.
It's with lots of caveats, and it's a very
for
generalized thing. But yeah, I mean, again, like if you're ready to commit to these sorts of practices and you want to do this sort of stuff, like it will help you and it will guide you in some of that.
Yeah,
But again, like check the energy, like
Yeah.
a book's not going to save you.
And cards aren't going to save
Cards
you.
aren't going to save you.
No. Unfortunately.
I know.
I
Such
wish
a
it
bummer.
were so. If just like reading and talking about things could save you and enlighten you,
Right? None of this would matter
No,
because we'd be done.
we'd be ascended masters, all of us.
Indeed.
Because we've read all the stuff. And
Yeah.
we know all the little things to say.
Yeah. We own every self-help book known to man, every tarot book, every Enneagram book. They're all on our bookshelves.
And we're still shitty.
Yeah.
We
Because
are.
you know what? It takes a lot of fucking work.
It does. Not being shitty is real hard.
So on that high note,
Thanks for being here.
don't forget to subscribe so that you know when more is coming your way.
Yeah, I'll put a link to your book in the
In the description.
Awesome. Please hit that little button. I'm doing it.
Yeah, you're going to hit that little button. What little button?
The like button.
The like button.
Also the subscribe button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at you go.
See?
You're doing it.
I'm doing it. Okay.
Awesome.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.